me ask you a question. Have you ever woken up in the morning, felt the weight of the world pressing down on your chest before you even got out of bed? You look at your phone, boom! Emails, notifications, demands, and before you even think, your day is being lived for you. You're not leading, you're reacting. But what if I told you that your first 90 minutes in the morning could completely rewire your life? That the way you breathe, move, speak, think, and write in those first few moments could separate you from 98% of the world sleepwalking through life. See, successful people, the ultra performers, the leaders, the game changers, they don't leave their mornings to chance. They own their state before the world steals it. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through 7 battle-tested, neurologically backed, peak performance-driven rituals that I've helped implement for over 30 years with CEOs, world-class athletes, creators, and everyday people like you who decided they were done with mediocrity. So if you're ready to stop waking up in survival mode and start stepping into your next level, then lock in, because this is the shift. This is where you take your power back. ChatGPT said, 1, own your state before the world does. Every single day begins with a moment, brief, sacred, and untapped by chaos. In that moment, your state is yours and yours alone. Before the notifications buzz, before the demands start stacking, before the opinions of the world pour in, you hold power. The problem is, most people give that power away before their feet even touch the ground. They wake up and instantly reach for the outside world. The news, the messages, the emails, the social media, they let the world decide how they should feel, think, and act. But if you want to live life on your terms, that stops now. To own your state is to decide who you are, how you will feel, and how you will respond before anyone or anything outside of you gets a vote. That's what separates those who drift from those who dominate. The morning is not just a time, it is a space. And in that space, you must claim your emotional home. You must choose your peak state with intention and discipline. It doesn't happen by accident. It happens by ritual. And the ritual starts with your physiology. Because let me tell you something. Emotion is created by motion. If you wake up slouched, dragging your feet, groaning, your nervous system registers defeat before the day even begins. But when you stand tall, breathe deep, pull your shoulders back, and move with power, your brain starts firing different signals. You begin to feel different because you are different. Your blood is pumping. Your posture is aligned. Your energy rises. The body leads and the mind follows. That's why great performers, leaders, athletes, they don't wait to feel good. They create their state. They move into it. They prime themselves. They generate energy instead of hoping to find it. Then comes the mind, and the first thoughts you feed it become the lens through which you experience everything else. Most people wake up and speak defeat. I'm tired, it's too early, I don't want to do this today, and then they wonder why they feel weak. The truth is, the words you say become the world you live in. So if you want to own your state, you start by owning your language. Start every morning with declarations. Speak who you are becoming. Say, I am alive. I am strong. I am clear. I lead. I create. I conquer. Even if it feels unnatural at first, do it. Not to pretend. This isn't fake. It's programming. Your subconscious doesn't care if it's true. It believes what you repeat. So repeat power, repeat focus, repeat fire. Next comes focus. Where focus goes, energy flows. And in the first few minutes of your day, what you focus on will shape how you think, act, and feel for hours to come. If you focus on problems, you live in a state of stress. If you focus on purpose, you live in a state of power. So take time, just a few minutes, to focus your mind intentionally. Think about what you're building, who you're becoming, and why it matters. Visualize it. Picture it. Step into it mentally before you step into it physically. Because your brain doesn't know the difference between something vividly imagined and something real. When you visualize success with emotion and clarity, you start to embody it. You begin to believe it. And belief is the soil in which greatness grows. You must also remove external influence. In those first moments of the day, stay away from the noise. No phone, no headlines, no notifications. The moment you let the outside in, you give up control. You let someone else's urgency dictate your energy. But if you protect that space, you gain momentum. You start the day leading, not reacting. You choose how you show up instead of reacting to how the world shows up. This is how you own your state. You move first, you speak life, you choose your focus, and you block out the noise. You rise with fire and set a tone so strong the rest of the day has no choice but to follow your lead. You don't wait to see what happens. You decide what happens. Internally, before anything external takes place. That's ownership. That's self-leadership. And that's the edge most people never claim. When you do this consistently, something incredible happens. Your state becomes your standard. No longer do you need the perfect conditions. You don't need the right weather, the right mood, or the right schedule. You've trained yourself to own the moment, regardless of what's happening around you. That's real power. That's when the world stops moving you and you start moving the world. 2, do one hard thing first every morning. The moment you open your eyes, a battle begins, not out there in the world, but in your own mind. And the first decision you make, that's the one that sets the tone for every decision that follows. This is why the greatest leaders, the most disciplined performers, the top achievers in every field, they all share one trait. They do something hard first. Not because they enjoy pain, not because they're superhuman, but because they understand one truth. Resistance is strongest in the beginning. The mind wakes up soft. It wants comfort. It wants ease. It wants to hit snooze, scroll through distraction, delay movement, delay clarity. But the moment you give into that, you're handing your power to weakness. That's why doing something hard first is so powerful. It rewires the mind. It sends a signal loud and clear that you are in charge, that you do not follow fear, you do not bow to hesitation. You rise and you lead. This one decision made every morning will shape your identity faster than any motivational quote, any podcast, any goal you write down. Because the identity is built in action. And action beats thought. It beats intention. It beats planning. What's your hard thing? Maybe it's a cold shower. Maybe it's a tough workout. Maybe it's writing a page for your book. Maybe it's 10 minutes of meditation when your mind is racing. Maybe it's having that difficult conversation you've been avoiding. It doesn't matter what it is. What matters is that you face it, that you finish it. Because when you do the hard thing, everything else starts to feel easier. You've already won a battle the average person avoids, and that builds a stack of victories in your mind. And victory builds momentum. Momentum builds confidence, and confidence builds destiny. You also strengthen your relationship with discomfort. That's huge. Most people run from it. They wait to feel ready, but readiness is a lie. Winners know this. They don't wait to feel like doing the work. They do the work, and then the feeling follows. They use action as their trigger, not motivation. And here's the most important part. It's not about the task. It's about the identity it forges. Every time you do something hard, something your mind resists, you cast a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. You tell yourself, I am someone who shows up. I am someone who pushes through. I am someone who leads my mind, not the other way around. And that identity, that's what lasts. That's what shapes your behavior under pressure. Because when you've trained your mind to obey strength, especially in the small moments, you become unshakable in the big ones. 3, speak life with morning declarations. The first words you speak in the morning are not just sounds. They are commands. They are the scripts you give your subconscious mind. And make no mistake, your subconscious is listening closely. It doesn't argue. It doesn't question. It simply accepts what you repeat. This is why declarations are not fluff. They are strategy. High performers, peak leaders, those who shape history, they all know this. The story you tell yourself becomes the life you live. Most people speak defeat before the day even starts. They wake up and say, I'm tired, or it's going to be one of those days. And guess what? It becomes exactly that. The words become a prophecy. Why? Because the brain follows the path of least resistance. And when you affirm weakness, you give it permission to lead. You lower your standard before you've taken your first conscious breath. But there's a different way, a better way, a more powerful way. It starts with speaking life, speaking power, speaking focus and identity. Because when you shape your language, you shape your beliefs. And beliefs are the seeds of behavior. You don't need 10 steps. You don't need a complicated routine. You need conviction in your voice and clarity in your identity. Say it, I am strong. I am focused. I am driven. I rise with purpose. I lead my life. This isn't about ego. This isn't about pretending you've got it all figured out. This is about aligning your language with your potential, speaking who you are becoming, not just who you were, and doing it before the world tells you who to be. When you declare strength in the morning, you are setting a tone for your nervous system. Your body listens. Your cells listen. Your emotions follow. It's not mystical. It's mechanical. The words you speak produce energy. And energy, once created, becomes motion. That motion influences action, and action becomes identity over time. Here's what people don't understand. Repetition is the key. Not volume, not perfection, just consistency. The same way you train your muscles, you train your mind with repeated intentional language. Not once, not when it's easy, but every morning. Especially when it's hard. Especially when you feel like shrinking. That's when declarations are most critical. We need to define it. We need to describe it. Then apply action. Then apply declarations in the moment. Not when you're trying to get something done. That's when declarations are most critical. Because they are not reactive. They are proactive. They are leadership. Even in the silence of your own bedroom, you must become your own voice of truth. That voice will echo throughout your day. If you don't speak power into your life, who will? If you don't declare your vision, how will you stay aligned when the distractions come? Because they will come. And when they do, you must have a rooted identity that was spoken into existence before the chaos arrived. Declarations are not motivational slogans. They are identity anchors. They root you in your purpose and pull you toward your future self. When you speak, you don't speak to the present. You speak through it. You speak to the version of you who exists on the other side of discipline. The version of you who builds, leads, creates, and contributes. And this is the secret. It doesn't matter if you believe the words completely at first. What matters is that you commit to the process. Because over time, the words become familiar. Familiar becomes normal. Normal becomes expected. Expected becomes natural. And eventually you stop trying to become that person. You are that person. All because you started with your voice. So speak clearly. Speak boldly. Look in the mirror and say it with certainty. I am not here to survive. I am here to rise. I am here to serve. I am here to become. Because when you say it enough, your mind listens. Your body aligns. Your actions catch up. And your life follows. 4, move your body to activate your mind. The body is not just a vehicle for the mind. It is a trigger, a lever, a catalyst for mental strength and emotional clarity. The second you start moving, something begins to shift. Not just physically, but neurologically. The moment you engage your physiology, You interrupt the patterns of doubt, fatigue, and hesitation. This is why the most successful people in any field don't just exercise for health, they move their bodies to condition their minds. Because here's the truth. Movement changes state. State changes emotion. Emotion drives action, and action creates results. You can't expect a strong mind to grow in a still, sluggish, half-awake body. The body must be challenged. It must be activated. It must be turned on like a switch. And the morning is the most powerful time to do it. You don't need a gym. You don't need equipment. You need commitment. You need intensity. 10 minutes, 20, whatever you have, use it. The goal isn't to burn calories. The goal is to shift your identity from passive to powerful, from reactive to commanding, from overwhelmed to focused. When you move your body with force, you generate energy. You don't hope for it, you create it. That energy becomes momentum. And momentum, especially in the morning, becomes the emotional tone of your entire day. Think about it. How you feel after a morning of focused movement is different than how you feel when you roll out of bed, scroll your phone, and drift through your routine. One path leads to power, the other leads to weakness. Your posture matters. Your breath matters. Your heart rate matters. These are not small details. They are signals to your brain. When you stand tall, you feel different. When you breathe deep, you think clearer. When you sweat, you awaken the warrior inside of you that was sleeping through comfort. Have you ever noticed how sluggish mornings lead to sluggish thoughts? It's no accident. The body and mind are connected. Slump your shoulders and watch your focus collapse. Shallow breaths lead to shallow commitment. And when you delay movement, you delay purpose. This is why the most effective leaders move first. They act first. They push their bodies to rise before the world demands anything from them. Because when you do this, you send a message to yourself. I do not wait to feel ready. I create readiness. I don't wait for power. I produce it. I don't follow energy. I lead it. And that is where your edge comes from. Not talent, not luck, but conditioning. Daily morning movement becomes a non-negotiable. Not because of physical goals, but because of mental mastery. The rhythm of your body becomes the rhythm of your day. Fast walking, jumping jacks, stretching, breath work, whatever raises your pulse and commands your attention, do it with intensity. Not laziness, not distraction, but with presence, with fire, with absolute commitment. The movement doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be practiced. Because practice becomes preparation, and preparation becomes a habit. A habit becomes a lifestyle. This is how energy becomes your default, not your exception. And here's what separates the power from the passive. They don't negotiate with the voice that says skip it. They move because of that voice. They move through it. They override it. And by doing so, they train their minds to obey courage instead of comfort. So every morning, before anything else claims your attention, you claim your body. You move it. You activate it. You honor it. Because when you lead with movement, you lead your mind into clarity. You lead your emotions into strength. And you lead your life in the direction you were always meant to go. 5, write to create clarity and direction. In a world that moves fast and demands more each day, clarity is no longer a luxury, it's a requirement. The people who move with certainty, the ones who create, lead, and execute with conviction, are not guessing their way through the day. They're not waking up hoping to figure it out as they go. They are grounded in intentional clarity. And one of the most powerful tools to create that clarity is writing. Not typing, not tweeting, writing. With your hand, with your focus, with your inner world poured on to paper. Because writing is not just about information, but What resistance do I feel? Who do I want to show up as? These questions are not casual. They're powerful. They force you to define, to choose, to articulate your vision and your standard. When you do this daily, you stop drifting. You move with aim. There's something that happens neurologically when you write with your hand. It activates areas of the brain linked to memory, intention, and emotional regulation. You start to connect dots you didn't even know existed. Suddenly that vague stress becomes a clear problem. That hesitation becomes a decision. That idea becomes a plan. It doesn't matter if the words are perfect. What matters is that you're engaging in the process of self-awareness through self-expression. Writing also exposes your blind spots. If you can't write clearly about something, you probably don't understand it clearly. That's the signal. That's where the work begins. Keep digging. Keep asking better questions. Because clarity is not something you stumble upon. It's something you create. Deliberately and often painfully. But the more you do it, the faster it comes. And once you have clarity, direction follows. This is why journaling isn't a luxury or a hobby. It's a strategy. The top performers, the high-level thinkers, they use writing not just to plan, but to think, because real thinking is hard. Most people mistake remembering or reacting for thinking. But when you write, you are forced to slow down and think deeply. You build the mental muscle of focus. And that focus becomes your edge in a distracted world. Write your intentions, write your goals, write your fears, write your gratitude, write your questions. Just write. Because the act of writing moves your internal world into the external, where it can be shaped, refined, and executed. Don't let your thoughts stay trapped in your head. That's where dreams go to die. In the fog of overthinking. Pull them out. Make them real. Make them sharp. And don't only write when life is clear. Write when it's messy. Especially when it's messy. When you're overwhelmed, when you feel stuck, when your mind is racing. That's the signal to pick up the pen. Not to fix everything, but to see clearly. Because what you can see, you can shift. What you can describe, you can dominate. Writing also reveals patterns. Over time, you'll begin to see what thoughts repeat, what challenges resurface, what growth is happening. You'll develop a sense of meta-awareness, watching your own mind from above. That's the gift of journaling. It's not just about today's plan. It's about the person you're becoming. Day by day, page by page, line by line. And the beauty of this practice is its simplicity. You don't need a system. You don't need rules. You need honesty. You need presence. And you need the courage to face your own thoughts without judgment. Let the page become your training ground. Let it become the mirror that shows you where you're aligned and where you're off course. Let it become the mirror that shows you where you're aligned and where you're off course. Because no GPS can guide a life without direction. And direction comes from clarity. And clarity comes from writing. 6. Anchor yourself in gratitude before the day pulls you into its demands, before the world reminds you of what's missing, what's wrong, what's urgent. You must anchor yourself in what's true. And one of the most powerful truths you can hold in the morning is gratitude, not as a cliche, not as a quick checklist, but as a practice, a daily alignment to what matters, what's working, and what's already present in your life. Because when your mind starts the day with lack, it chases. When it starts with appreciation, it leads. Gratitude is not passive. It's not soft. It's not weak. It's not just about feeling warm inside, it's about power, perspective, precision. It's about reminding yourself that no matter what the world throws at you today, you already have something worth protecting, worth building, worth fighting for. Because when you're grateful, you're grounded. You're not chasing validation. You're moving from abundance, not for it. The mistake most people make is thinking gratitude is just about big things. It's not. It's about training your mind to notice the small wins, the unseen blessings, the things you take for granted till they're gone. Your breath, your legs, a roof, a conversation, a lesson from yesterday, a second chance, the sound of laughter, the fact that you woke up at all, because nothing about that is guaranteed. And when you see it, really see it, you stop whining and you start working. Gratitude is the antidote to entitlement. It's the enemy of comparison. It kills the need to prove and replaces it with the desire to contribute. You stop asking, why don't I have more? And start asking, what can I do with what I already have? That question changes everything. It flips your lens from scarcity to strength, from what's wrong to what's real. And when you make this shift first thing in the morning, you build a psychological shield. Because stress will come, problems will show up, people will test your energy, but when your baseline is gratitude, your threshold for chaos increases. You're less reactive, more intentional, more grounded in truth. You're not shaken by every headline, every delay, every criticism. You're stable. Not because everything is perfect, but because you've chosen to start your day with perspective. This is why high performers start with gratitude, not because they live in denial, but because they know the power of focus. And when you focus on what's working, you gain access to more energy, more creativity, more resilience. Gratitude becomes your access point to resourcefulness. And resourcefulness is where leadership lives. Don't just think it, feel it. Sit still for 30 seconds, breathe. Think of 3 things, not abstract concepts, real, specific moments. Let them rise in your awareness. Feel the emotion attached. That's your fuel. That's your foundation. That's the moment where power begins, not from what you're chasing, but from what you already have. This isn't a one-time practice. It's a conditioning tool. Do it every day, and over time, your brain gets trained to default to appreciation. Instead of waking up and thinking, what's wrong, you start asking, what's right? And that question will change your trajectory, because what you focus on expands. And when you focus on what you have, you create more of what you want. So before you open your inbox, before you check your calendar, before the day makes its demands, pause, anchor, breathe, be grateful, not for a perfect life, but for the opportunity to live it. Gratitude is not about ignoring struggle. It's about holding strength and struggle in the same hand and choosing to move forward anyway. 7, begin with stillness to command the day. In a world that rewards speed, noise, and constant motion, stillness has become a lost art. But if you want to lead your life instead of react to it, you must begin with stillness. Before the notifications, before the caffeine, before the rush of responsibility grabs your attention, you must create space to listen. Not to the world, not to others, but to yourself, because clarity doesn't shout, it whispers, and you only hear it when you slow down enough to listen. Stillness is not about doing nothing. It's about doing the most important thing first, tuning in to what matters. Because when you start your day from a place of noise, urgency, and scattered thought, you fracture your focus before you even begin. But when you start with stillness, you set the tone. You establish control. You give yourself the greatest gift a person can have in the modern world: intentionality. Without it, you're lost in the default settings of stress and distraction. With it, you take the driver's seat. The practice of stillness can look different for everyone. For some, it's silence. For others, it's breath. For some, it's prayer or meditation. For others, it's simply sitting in a room with no agenda. What matters is not the form, it's the presence. The deliberate pause before life begins to pull. The conscious decision to be instead of immediately do. This is not weakness. This is strength. The strongest minds are not the loudest. They are the most rooted. When you wake up, your mind is vulnerable. It's open. It's unfiltered. And the first thing you consume sets the neurological tone for your entire day. If you reach for your phone, your mind is immediately hijacked by someone else's priorities. If you rush into your to-do list, your nervous system spikes before your body has even caught up. But when you begin with stillness, you regulate. You reset. You command your state instead of being dictated by it. This is the paradox of power. The more responsibility you carry, the more stillness you need. Because your clarity must outpace your chaos. And clarity does not come from more noise. It comes from silence, from slowing your breath, from feeling your body, from observing your thoughts without reacting to them, from asking what matters most today before the world tells you what's urgent. Stillness is not comfortable at first, especially if your default mode is hustle. It will feel unproductive, unnatural, even frustrating. That's the point. Stillness reveals your inner dialogue. It shows you the parts of yourself you've been running from. It brings your fears, your doubts, your unmet emotions to the surface. And in that confrontation, you find clarity. Because what you don't face owns you. But when you sit with it, without judgment, without escape, you take back the keys to your emotional state. You don't need an hour, you need presence. 2 minutes, 5, 10, enough to pause, breathe, and notice. How do you feel? What are you carrying into the day? What thoughts are dominating your mind? What energy is rising? Stillness gives you the space to respond instead of react. And response is leadership, reaction is survival. Stillness gives you the space to choose who you will be before the world chooses for you. Most people are addicted to movement because they are afraid of what stillness might reveal. They're afraid of being alone with their thoughts, their fears, their truth. But the leaders, the builders, the creators, they seek that space. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Stillness sharpens discernment. It clarifies priorities. It strengthens discipline. It centers your identity. It removes noise so you can hear signal. And in a world built on distraction, signal is everything. When you begin your day in stillness, you're not escaping life. You're preparing for it. You're choosing to respond instead of be overwhelmed. You're choosing to observe instead of react. You're choosing to command instead of chase. That's what makes it powerful. You're not rushing into battle without armor. You're pausing to sharpen your sword. You're taking inventory before you lead. And that gives you an edge most people don't even know exists. Stillness doesn't mean the absence of thought. It means awareness of thought. Watching the mind move without jumping in. Letting the noise rise without following it. Seeing the distractions but not giving them power. This practice builds your inner authority. It creates a gap between stimulus and response. And in that gap, you build character, discipline, wisdom. These are not just words. They're forged in the quiet. Your nervous system, when rooted in stillness, begins to shift. The stress response lowers, cortisol drops, heart rate slows, breath deepens. You become present, not scattered, not rushed, but steady, grounded, focused. This physiological state is the optimal place for performance, decision-making, and leadership. You don't lead from panic, you lead from presence. And presence begins with stillness. Stillness also reveals alignment. When you're quiet, you can feel where you're off. You can sense what's pulling you in the wrong direction. You can spot the habits, the thoughts, the people, the tasks that are draining your energy instead of fueling your purpose. But when you move too fast, you don't see it. You miss the signal. You miss the correction. You move blindly, and blind action is expensive. Stillness is not a pause from productivity. It's what makes productivity intentional. You cannot build a powerful life on a weak foundation. And that foundation is your internal state. If your mind is chaotic, it doesn't matter how efficient your schedule is. If your emotions are hijacked, it doesn't matter how smart your strategy is. Stillness is what reinforces the foundation. It's what allows you to carry more with less burnout, to decide faster with more clarity, to speak fewer words with more weight. You speak life with declarations that anchor who you are. You move your body to activate your brain and raise your baseline. You write not to sound smart, but to create clarity, direction, and discipline. You anchor yourself in gratitude so the world doesn't trick you into scarcity. And you begin with stillness so you don't get caught up in noise, but lead with presence. This isn't fluff. This isn't theory. This is decades of neuroscience, human behavior, and performance psychology distilled into one powerful system to own your day before it owns you. You implement these 7 consistently, and I promise you, your days will look different. And when your days look different, your life transforms. Not all at once, but line by line, morning by morning, win by win. So ask yourself, what would life look like if I stopped reacting and started commanding every single morning with precision and power? The choice isn't tomorrow, it's now. Now go out there, lead your morning, and the world will follow. Let's go.